I never want a student to trade off a great grade for joining a club. But I think it's important to realize your GPA is not going to matter that much, especially down the road, meaning you got that degree, right?
Sure, you got the piece of paper. That's all anyone cares about. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're taking 15 credits in a given semester, that means you're in the classroom for 15 hours. Now you're going to spend time working on that classwork, but it's the rest of your time that really allows a student the opportunity to maximize their experience. We also have lots of students that are low income, Pell eligible, first gen. They're working 20 hours, 30 hours, sometimes 40 hours a week outside the classroom to pay their tuition bill. To ask them to take an unpaid internship, it's just not fair.
Yeah.
AI is only taking what's already out there and putting it together in a new way for you. It might do some analysis, but for the most part, it's a hunter and gatherer, right? For us to move forward, solving problems takes creativity.
Well, hello, humans. This is Emily Smith. You're here for another episode of the Vinedown. Today, I am joined by Joe Hartman, who is the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs at UMass Lowell. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Emily, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here too.
So, Joe, we've already started talking about it in the bit of the pre-show, but I'm curious about your view of the student experience extending far beyond the classroom. And I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about sort of what shifted in your own perspective as, like a pipe-hitting engineering faculty member into someone who's more focused on the full experience across the unification of the academic and student experience. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things that led me to this and led a lot of us here on campus to this conclusion. We spend a lot of time, at least at UMass Lowell, talking to who hires our students in the end, a lot of the companies and employers and so forth. And when they talk about we ask, are you getting what you need out of our students? Are they prepared on day one? Can they be contributors to your organization? You often get positive responses, but there's always the but, ands, and so forth. That it'd be great if there were a few more things, right? And they don't tend to highlight concerns with regards to the major. Do they have the skill sets to actually perform work? It's more of those soft skills, right? How do they interact with other colleagues, or how do they interact with potential customers? Communication skills, those types of things are what often come up. Communication skills being writing and or speaking, those types of things. And when you get down to it, a lot of those skills can be developed in the classroom, but a lot of times they're enhanced or developed outside the classroom. So it's when you start thinking about the whole experience, what is the student doing? If you're taking 15 credits in a given semester, that means you're in the classroom for 15 hours. That means you're out of the classroom how many hours in a week? You're out of the classroom a lot. Now you're going to spend time working on that classwork, but it's the rest of your time that really allows a student the opportunity to maximize their experience and get involved in things outside of class. Could be a club, could be a student organization, could be a professional organization, could be a sport, anything that allows you to work with others, to develop some other skills, really can enhance your experience on campus, and then frankly make you, a better person, a better colleague, a better employee when you leave campus. And so here at Lowell, we started thinking about it. You work so hard at a university to develop that transcript. I took all these classes, I got all these grades, and it gave me this degree. We've worked on helping students develop a co-curricular transcript. We want to be able for a student to say, here's what I got involved with, and here's what it helped me develop. And really, when you put those two things together, that's the complete expression of what a student did on campus.
Yeah, I love that mindset. And I like that you were tracking it back through asking employers who employ your graduates, like what they found valuable in basically like the product that you were creating, right? Like, which is like each individual student is sort of like one more off the assembly line to sort of quality test the students in the classes. And I'm curious how when I think about when I was a student, I think about the extra things that I did, whether it was like my club sport or being involved in the arts. I always felt like I was making sort of a guilty trade-off between my coursework and those activities, and you're saying like, "No, no, no, that's actually part of the value." And I'm curious how you make that true for students. So when you talk about that co-curricular transcript, how are you making that sort of official, known, above bar so that it doesn't feel like this sort of like these guilty extras that you're participating in, but like really critical pieces of the whole student experience?
So, well, first of all, I think it's important on day one that students understand that this is part of the college experience, that the entirety of it all, right? And so what we've launched here at UMass Lowell, we call it the Mosaic Student Experience, that we want students to think about a college experience as being unique, but also being comprised of lots of pieces, right? So if you think of a mosaic, right, it's usually tiles of different colors put together and you can make an expression or make a picture or whatever. But what's cool about mosaics is they're all so darn unique, right? And every student's experience is unique. So that I think they first have to realize that it's unique to them. They don't have to do everything, but we want you to try to find a few things to hang your hat on, right? And so in orientation, which we have going on right now at UMass Lowell, there's all these budding to be freshmen walking around campus. They're going to sit down and talk about in learning about what they could do on campus. You could be a co-op, you could do study abroad, you can join a club, you can join a sport. There's all, it's almost overwhelming, right? But we ask them, pick a few of these things that ring true with you. Maybe you're really excited about skiing, you want to join the skiing club. Maybe you're really excited about debate, so you want to be in our Model UN team and that type of thing. And what we do with this, we actually have some software here that the student success through can access through their apps. Is start making your putting your tiles onto a board, right? So we're going to put a few up there. You're interested in studying abroad. You're interested in joining a club, and what it does is it puts a tile on a board. It's just outlined for now. And over time, we're going to ask you, hey, have you done this yet? Have you thought about this yet? And when you have, you kind of click on it, it fills in, it starts to fill in your mosaic. And we do that for two reasons. One is it for the student to sort of always be thinking about it, but it's also for our advisors and our faculty to be able to look quickly at a picture and go,
What's the shape of things?
exactly. Are you doing things? Are you getting involved? Okay. And that's what we really want. And so, to your question, because it's a good question, I haven't actually necessarily thought about, do students struggle with the sign? I think maybe they do think about it, worrying about doing too much or that kind of thing. But by encouraging on day one that this is part of the experience, maybe we take some of that pressure away, and it allows our, staff and faculty to help not, nudge that when if it's been a year and you've just got a bunch of outlines on your mosaic, then I'm a little worried you're not taking advantage of your time. And at the same time, maybe if you're struggling with your grades a little bit and you got 17 tiles filled in, maybe we do ask you to dial it back a little.
Well, I think about the difference between like the coursework I had to take as, like an English degree and, sort of felt like I kind of had to barely take classes to finish that major versus like finishing an undergraduate, engineering degree where you have to take a really rigorous set of classes in a really rigorous order and you really can't fall behind if you want to graduate on time. And I think about the different types of students and I'm curious, like, how does that holistic student experience look like in practice for some of the students who might feel, like, how do you make that make sense to an engineering student about like why the whole student experience actually will matter to them as an employed engineer down the road?
So, not that I'd ever want a student to trade off a great grade for joining a club. Okay. But I think it's important to realize, especially down the road, your GPA is not going to matter that much, meaning you got that degree, right?
Sure, you got the piece of paper, that's all anyone cares about, yeah.
Exactly. So we want our students to achieve great grades, but I think also to be successful in school, you do need a break once in a while too. And a break can one of these things can provide that break. And at the same time, they're not all, orthogonal, meaning I do this and I do this and they're not related. Okay. Some of these things that you do outside the classroom can be truly integrated with what you do. And so there's no reason to feel that you're not a part of it. For example, let's go to the engineering student. I'm a mechanical engineering student. Well, maybe you should join the trying to think of some of our clubs here. We have a Formula One race car team, right? And so if your desires to go design the next race, to design cars or design some sort of mechanical system, then frankly, being on that team, you're going to do it.
That's good for job prospects.
Exactly. In almost any of our majors, you can find one that's a direct alignment if you have that, maybe you're not going to go join the baseball club because, you feel like you can't be away from that long, but this might be something that would work really well for you. Maybe you're a woman in engineering, and I would highly encourage you to join the Society of Women Engineers because they get together and talk about different things that might help you with your career, might help you find a study buddy. I mean, there's so many things that good can come out of it that I think ignoring it would hurt your chances of having that great experience.
Yeah, I totally see that, and I'm trying to sort of reverse engineer, like, how I would newly view my own experiences as a student a billion years ago, because I do think that, the skills I use in my job really are likely the skills that I learned as a club athlete and it's the things that make me really excellent at a cocktail party. And I'm curious, like, part of that also is sort of the job experience and the connectedness across not only sort of the parts of your mosaic that are sort of viewed as sort of break and holistic care of whole human, but also sort of that trajectory through like mechanical engineering to Formula One to sort of internships and jobs. And your chancellor had set a really ambitious goal for you where every student is getting at least one paid career connected experience. And where did you start with that? And sort of where are you on that challenge? Because that's like a big effort.
Absolutely, it's a big effort. It was because she came on 3 years ago, and that was one of the first.
That's bold.
We were excited by it, obviously a little daunting because 2 things have to happen. Gotta have these opportunities for every student, and then we actually had to track it, right? So there were 2 pieces to that make it a great challenge for the team. So, her goal in doing that is the same thing we brought up before, is talking to employers, what are they looking for, and so on and so forth. She wanted to make sure and she even had a broader reason, which I appreciate too. One is to prepare the students, for life past college. So that's the one we've talked about. The other one was, her hope is you have at least one, maybe 2, because in her own experience, her first career connected co-op opportunity, she hated. And so
Oh, and
it
if she had
taught her
stopped
that,
there.
"Oh, I don't wanna go that way. I wanna divert this way." And she figured it out in school as opposed to waiting till she graduated. So great motivations, right? And so it was a big reason for us to launch this Mosaic project because what this does, it allows us to help track our students on their way to doing these things. And once they do, we can say, check, we got this student. And likewise, when we have students that we see aren't moving forward, we can provide them with additional help. The other reason for the goal and for working on this is UMass Lowell, we have almost 50% of our students are first gen. And what that tends to how it manifests itself at a university in that these are different students than say someone who's a fourth generation student is, it's that network. It's the network of understanding, one, how college works, and 2, almost more importantly, when you're going to get that first job, you don't have that network necessarily to tie into. That's someone that, whose parents are out in the working world and can shuttle around a resume amongst friends out in the public sector for you, potentially. That's not as prevalent for a first gen student. So by forcing students, saying that this, not forcing them,
Making it formal.
exactly, that we're going to help you. If we're going to ask you to do this and we're going to promise you this, then we are building in the support system through our career services to help you put together a resume, be able to do a job interview, be able to set up a LinkedIn account, figure out which opportunities you're going to apply for, and then be successful in landing one, and then come back to campus and appreciate how that actually we find you go do one of those, you come back, you are more motivated to do better in school, finish on time, get out there and start that real career.
Yeah, that's right on, and I like that both through the mindset of, like, figure out what you like, what you don't like, what's gonna work for you, and what won't work for you, and you're right, if you stopped at one, if that first experience was negative, your sort of negative feedback loop would be really sort of catastrophic. But, like, okay, so what types of opportunities I see it very clearly in Certainly the degrees where there's sort of an applied profession. And I'm curious, like, what happens when you're dealing with a sociology student or a philosophy student or a psychology, I mean, not psychology, but philosophy or sociology or, English literature, like what types of internships and sort of extensibility into the working world are you seeing with those types of students?
That's a great question, and obviously that's the bigger challenge. I don't It's not that I don't have to worry about my engineering students.
It's more straightforward. It's like all things in engineering, it's very linear.
That's absolutely, and the challenge, it's a wonderful challenge, but with most of our liberal arts majors and so on, is the wide array of what they could do afterwards. So again, there's a twofold process here. One is that we're working with the colleges to put some of this career planning in place, whether it's right into the curriculum. Maybe they have a 1 or 2 credit course on exploring your major and what you could do with it, that kind of thing. So maybe if you're a philosophy major, you can learn that, hey, a lot of us go into policy making, or some of us go to law school and these types of things, right? So that's number one. And then number two then is to help them, once they get a flavor of something that might be useful, is to potentially we recruit a lot more opportunities by talking to a wider array of companies than we normally would. The other part of it is finding some, nonprofits that would want skill sets that are prevalent in those majors, right? They want the English majors, the philosophy majors, because they need to do a lot of outreach. They need to do a lot of communications, a lot of writing. Now, the part that's tough there, nonprofits often don't pay, right? Or can't pay at a wage that's gonna allow students to be able to do that, right? We also have lots of students that are low income, Pell eligible, first gen. They're working 20 hours, 30 hours, sometimes 40 hours a week outside the classroom to pay their tuition bill. So to ask them to take an unpaid internship, it's just not fair. Yeah, it's great career experience, but they can't afford to do it. So what we have done here, and we've been very fortunate, our previous chancellor set up a fund, and we've had other funds set up on campus, that if you're able to land an opportunity, meaning there's a nonprofit here in the city of Lowell that needs someone to work on grant writing for them, and they would love let's say a philosophy major. If a philosophy major finds that opportunity, they can apply for funding from this fund that we're talking about. It's the Maloney Fellowship Scholarship Funds, and we are able to pay that student and attach a faculty member for a little extra mentoring, but to work with that nonprofit, right? And we've been successful at doing, I would, it's more than dozens, probably hundreds of these so far, not just in Lowell, but across the state of Massachusetts. Put them into roles in research entities and nonprofits. And so now we've opened the aperture of opportunities and not had the hindrance of, hey, great opportunity, but they don't have any funding, right? And so now we're delivering on the promise. It gives us, now we have two pieces that I said we had to find the opportunities and track them. Now we also have to do some fundraising, but you'd be surprised how many people are interested in funding an opportunity for a student, such that instead of working at the coffee shop, and we need students working at the coffee shops too, but instead of just doing that, they can also do this.
Yeah, it's putting into context an experience I had as an undergraduate student in the state of Massachusetts where I received grant funding to take an unpaid internship to drive around a 20-foot long Winnebago pulling a 20-foot long bottle trailer for Nantucket Nectars during the Big Dig. And it was amazing. They weren't able to pay me, but I was able to set up and do promotions and essentially learn a little bit of sort of the corner of PR, and promoting a product, and learned how to drive a Winnebago during the Big Dig. It was fun until the Winnebago caught fire on the Mass Pike. And I'm curious, like, did you have these experiences?
Probably unleashed a whole new skill set you didn't know you had there too, I bet.
Well, I am really good in an emergency. I will say that. I think I am really good when things are really bad. But like, did you have any of these things available to you as sort of an engineering undergrad? Can you track to any of your early career experiences that sort of inform your mental models for you personally about like where you are today on knowing how important this is?
I vividly recall going to a open information night about why you should go to grad school when I was an undergrad. I'm not even sure why I went, other than they probably said there'd be free food, right? And so showed up, but met a faculty member who to this day is still a mentor of mine. And she offered, because I was like, I don't understand this whole grad thing. She says, you know what? Instead of me telling you, come to my lab tomorrow. And on the spot, she gave me a job. It was minimum wage, but the money almost didn't matter, but it did matter because she said it was important enough to pay me. And I got to work with her grad students. And granted, I got the menial tasks. Hartman, you're going to the library, find this book, look up this article, summarize it for us, these types of things. But it gave me a flavor of why I should go on to grad school. It paid me a few nickels, and I got to talk to people who were in it. So I got to understand more about it and why it got me excited for the future. So I see it as a direct, a direct correlation because we have lots of faculty here that for the same hire students and they get a career connected opportunity that way.
For sure. I'm just picturing like young you going into the library and feeling like very important with a microfiche machine, just like dialing the thing. And yeah.
We can't say microfiche anymore because nobody understands what that means.
Well, if you're hearing this, you can look it up. It's but okay, but wait, that gets to my next question, which is like that whole arc of things what you just described was your like the menial tasks that you did as an undergraduate in that chapter. My brain goes to like the ways in which I would AIify all of those tasks. And I'm actually really wondering about the ways in which graduates from undergrad programs, their competition in getting entry level jobs is not necessarily other entry level employees. It's the ways in which companies are going to AIify work. And I'm curious, like, has that shown up for you when you're sort of placing these students as part of the sort of Mosaic paid career connected experiences? Are you seeing this yet at all? Are you worried about that same thing yet? Are you seeing that show up?
Not seeing it yet. It's coming though. And I think it's definitely, I think it's a concern for students, right? It's a concern for their parents as they're sending them out into the work world. I think so. I'm very fortunate to work at a special place, right? I've already talked about the students we have here on campus. They get me excited about, I want to do the best job I can because I'm very excited about helping them. What's also unique about UMass Lowell, and I think this is an important topic when it comes to AI and the future of work, is we're a Research One university. We're surrounded by, not only do we have a mission for access and for students to get to pull students in who maybe normally wouldn't go to college or certainly couldn't afford to go to college, and getting them out into the workforce, but we're also a Research One in that we're one of I don't know, 180 schools in the country that's been recognized for its research. Why is that important? Well, research is delving into creativity. It's exploring the unknown and these types of things. We have faculty here that are doing big things, right? And so when I think about AI and I use it every day, I mean, it's annual review time. I have to write all my letters. All my direct reports know that those letters are being aided in how it saves me time. Doesn't mean there's not me in it, right? But AI is only taking what's already out there and putting it together in a new way for you. It might do some analysis, but for the most part, it's a hunter and gatherer, right? Uh, for us to move forward, solving problems takes creativity, and that's something that you maybe don't learn it, but you sure develop it when you're in school, and you develop it by working with folks that push you on those types of things. Whether it's a deep project or even a homework assignment or whatever. So I think I feel good that the education that the students are getting here is gonna compensate. We're gonna bring more value to the job, and the folks that are gonna succeed are the ones who can use AI as a tool to get their bigger missions done, right? Have something else take care of the minutia. It doesn't mean that some things aren't going to go away. There's a lot of professions out there that, um, that exactly what you said. Me going to the stacks into the microfiche to look up information. It should be easier now, right? So I should be able to come back. I still need the skill of understanding is this complete? Did I cover everything? Did I exactly. Where are the gap and figuring out where the gaps in the knowledge are because that's where you're gonna contribute in the future. And that takes critical thinking skills. So I think, it doesn't it's not it's gonna change education, and it always has, right? The minute we got calculators and you didn't have to do the computation by hand, it took us to thinking about what do we need to calculate, right? It's the same thing here. I don't mean to trivialize it because it is a bigger task than just a calculator, but I think that's the differentiator.
Well, I think you're in this really interesting opportunity that will probably last, I don't know, the next 3 years maybe, where if you create a good flywheel around good AI behaviors, whether it's like the faculty at Lowell or the ways in which you sort of educate on AI, you actually have this advantage when you're asking companies to place students in these career connected experiences or internships, co-ops, where you can kind of sell that the student might know more than many of the team members at these places, which I think, that won't last forever, but I think could be like a really cool bridge for you to be like, yeah, who's going to do a better job at making your staff efficient than an undergraduate who's been trained at this R1 institution on how to view AI, particularly the shift like out of from generative AI into agentic AI. Companies are really hungry for that right now. And I think are putting a lot of faith in sort of like the upcoming workforce to be able to educate us on how to view it.
I think you're right. Not even just they may not know more, but I guarantee they're going to be less hesitant about diving in and trying it, right? And sometimes someone's just got to be willing to take the first step.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, I'm curious how you sell this to corporations and to companies. Like on the corporate side of this Mosaic experience, how are you making the case? Who is making the case? That's a lot of sort of sort of soft selling of this idea to these companies.
I think, I think I'll actually say they're finally going to go, you finally listened to us.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, we trust that the kids you produce can do what's in the major, but it's the soft skills we want. It's how they interact with people. It's all these other things. And the Mosaic is saying, yep, they've taken on these other things that will help them answer those questions that you've always been harping on us about. I think we can find it only go, check, we heard you.
Okay, it's the practicality of like, wait, Lowell was a mill town, right? Textile mills?
That's right.
Okay, so it's the extension of the like very practical mill town mindset. I love it.
It's true. It's true. No, I can't disagree with that. It's our Mill City grit. That's who we are, is what we do.
I like that. So, question about some of the surprises in building mosaics, whether it's sort of the triangle between sort of academics and co-curriculars and these career experiences. What were some of the surprises that you had in building this system, whether it's from students or even, getting faculty aligned? Were there any surprises that you saw in sort of these last few years of rollout?
Well, I'll even go back to before we started. It's like, so, a lot of us have always thought this whole experience matters, right? But there was research done in it was about 2015. Lumina produced some work that was done with Purdue Gallup. And they came in that work, there was 6, I'll say, things that led to a great undergraduate experience, right? And half of them were academic. They were working closely with a faculty member, doing a semester-long project, these types of things. The other half were outside that. They were participating in a club, having a mentor who really cared for you, these types of things. And so the surprise there when I saw the list is like, hey, those 6 make sense. Why do we have them in 2 different worlds in academia?
Right. Why are they divided and in conflict with each other?
Yeah. Academic affairs only cares about it's the faculty and what happens in the classroom and getting the transcript done. And then, at night, everyone leaves the library and goes and does something else. And a whole team called Student Affairs takes over. And that manages everything from the res halls to the recreation center to all those clubs and organizations. And those 2 shall not talk, right? And it's really weird when you think about it, right? Because it's both sides that matter. And so it was just fortunate timing here is that when I moved into the provost role, which only oversaw academic affairs, the lead for student affairs retired. And maybe boldly, I had approached the chancellor at that time and said, I've been looking at this research, I've been thinking about the student experience. We could be innovative here by putting academic and student affairs together and really getting focused together on this entire experience.
So you advocated for yourself into this big ass job. I see.
I did, and if it was corporate America, someone would have said, no, it's a power play.
No, but you're saying like it's based on the data to unify these things.
Absolutely. And so we brought together those teams, and now those teams meet together on a monthly basis. And we don't talk about study abroad being so separate from taking a class. In fact, those things go together now, right? We often have faculty lead a class and then take them abroad for a couple weeks, right? So these become an integrative experience. We talk about co-op being, you can get classwork, but then you also work for a semester, and career services helps in the delivery of the content to prepare for those experiences. So I think we've worked hard to actually bring those together. But it is different, right? So there's been lots of surprises. The biggest one being, why aren't these together more often?
When do you put on I mean, this is maybe a trick question. You might say something like, well, I don't. I only have one hat. But like, are there certain things that happen, sort of conflicts or tricky things that happen where you're like, I have to lean more into sort of my provost role here, or I have to lean more into my student affairs role? Are there things where you have a set of mental models that would inform your leaning, or does it truly feel now like a completely integrated experience for you in your decision making or in the ways that you prioritize the teams to do, the behaviors of the work?
That's a good question. I think at the end we do. So they are integrated, and there's lots of things that we want to do together. But if there's one thing that's true at universities is the faculty own the curriculum, right? There's a faculty senate that passes things, and that's what leads to new degrees or new ways of doing things. So we can often sit in a meeting and say, oh, wouldn't it be great if this all happened in the promise that the chancellor made was a paid experience. And in some cases, you get credit for an experience because, if you're a nursing student and you're going on clinicals, they can't pay you there, but you can get credits, right, towards your degree. And I think that's a fair, right? So there's often cases we sit and talk about that. And we say, oh, well, they can take this and do it for credit. But it's like, whoa, we got to be careful here because now we're talking about the degree, you're talking about the academic program.
I see. And one comes for the other in a way that would conflict with what the faculty needs in getting that job.
So there are times I guess I do I will pull off the student and say, well, provost says we got to do that through Senate. We can't just do that, right? But I do try to own. I do have more of those bucket hats, so there's a bigger brim. Maybe I just spin it a little bit. They look sometimes dorky, but I don't tan well, so it works well too for keeping the sun off.
I can relate, my friend. Okay, well, what would you say to other public institutions rolling this out? Like, I think yes, you have a long title, but it is rare to see academic and student affairs unified up under one organization. And what would you want other public institutions to know about this? I think private institutions perhaps operationalize things more in this realm because you're at smaller numbers in your student body and you're able to think more about sort of holistic things all the time. But what are some of the things you would say to public institutions trying to fund or find the support for a more Mosaic-like, experiential-like experience for their students?
I think you might agree, Emily. You probably talk to more leaders than a lot of folks. Higher ed's under a lot of stress and attack lately, and sometimes deservedly so. And I do believe a lot of it goes back to why we were talking to those employers and asking, are graduates coming out with the skills that you want? And when the answer is not always yes, and there's lots of no's, that's when people start to gang up and say, well, higher ed's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, right?
Right. It's not operating the place in on earth that we need it to be. Yeah.
Correct. So what I would say to my colleagues is if you take a step back and look at the integrated experience, you probably have all the pieces to make society happy with our product if you're able to show it, right? And so one reason to take on a project like a Mosaic project is you can illustrate, yep, students are graduating with these things and they lead to these outcomes, which go beyond the traditional transcript. So I think that's the value in putting them together. Do you have to have one person overseeing it? Maybe not, but you definitely need to think more integrated in terms of what the student experience should be. Otherwise, you're not going to fulfill that mission.
Well, the thing that you have baked into that I will slow down for the audience is that you also have a set of things that you have a formal framework that you are measuring outcome on, right? It's not just like a, do we think this is working in that it feels good and people like it, right? Like, sure, you can have two people own the same metrics, but you're saying there are metrics, there are things that we measure in the Mosaic. Like there is a physical system where they fill out tiles where we can audit what is happening and what those outcomes are. So, I mean, I said it a billion times on this show if I've said it once, which is like I have such a strong preference for things that can be measured in that sense.
Agreed. And so I'll be able to say of the graduating class, this percentage had an internship, this percentage did study abroad, this percentage worked in a research lab. I probably the next part, and what I hope the student can articulate is what are the skills they got from the study abroad that augment the ones on their traditional transcript, right? And I'm assuming they'd be able to do that because we would talk to them about that before the experience and after the experience.
Right. You set your success criteria and then you measure and audit. Did that happen? Um, all right. What is next for Mosaic and UMass Lowell?
Aha, good question. So, well, now we got to make sure we're delivering on the boss's promise, but that's it was looking at the data. So we had almost 1/3 of our freshmen hit the target already, right? And that's a pretty good.
In what time period? In 1 year?
Yeah, through the summer of the first year, so about 15 months worth, right? But that's a darn good start, right? That meant we set them up in their first year to odds are do something over the summer or probably during their second semester on campus. And so we've got to make sure. I think our biggest goal here. We did our first rollout with the orientation for this summer with the incoming class, but I've got to make sure that continues moving forward, right? And that we continue. I think our biggest, we've talked about it a little bit here, is making sure I have enough opportunities for the students that don't get the easy ones, right? You've named a few of the majors that we have to work a little bit harder on. And that just means spreading the reach of our network, right? Talk to some different agencies, different government entities, different companies than we would have in the past.
Right. Sort of extend the funnel a little bit on where they can go.
Absolutely.
Well, amazing. Joe Hartman, thank you so much for being on the Vinedown. This is super interesting. And I know that our audience is really going to benefit from hearing this. We typically talk a lot about enrollment and first-time recruitment. And you have really sort of expanded our thinking into like the student experience and what we're in it for, which is to create humans who are well prepared for Earth in its current state. So it's really, really interesting to hear what you're up to at UMass Lowell. I really appreciate you being on and joining us today at the show.
My pleasure, Emily. I might need to steal that for a tagline somewhere, but I like that a lot. Preparing
Hey,
for Earth in the future. I like that.
yeah. It's
It's been
what
fun.
we're up to. Folks, thanks so much for being here. Take care and we'll see you next time.